Hi, good morning. How do I make you all really be charged up? Can we serve some coffee here? A small shot of cognac? Very, very good morning to all of you. This is such a privilege to be part of this wonderful. There are hand mics there with you. I think we'll sit a little. Where is your- Yeah, Shiv, come here. Yeah, this is much better. At least we can see each other's face. I've been involved with the images fashion, the PRC for probably the last 24, 25 years, since the time Anish started comparing. And in the last 20, 25 years, very rarely do I get a chance to be with such distinguished fellows. Friends, we have lots of common things. How many of you speak Kannada? Only one person. God bless you, because the three of us are Kannadigas and we plan to do the panel in Kannada today. Yeah? Those of you who got a tech, please open up the translator, and our Kannada, you please see which language you want to really look at it. But it's wonderful, nice to have you all here. I think what we are looking at is how would the future of retail shape up, and especially if you look at the digital era, what's happening to the consumers, what's happening to India, and no better than Shiv and Harish with me. And three of us are going to make it a friendly chat between us. If in case in between you want to ask us something, we'll not wait for the Q&A, we can just pick up and ask some questions so that we make it interactive with all of you also, yeah? Before that, let me understand the audience. How many of you are retailers here? There are 2 retailers, 3, 4 retailers, 5. How many of you are mall developers? None. How many of you are IT professionals? 6, 7. Good. How many of you are consultants? Wonderful. How many of you are below 21 years? 21 to 31. 31 to 41. 41 to 51. Sir, you know the audience. You know the audience. We know who our consumers are. And that's where we're going to start. So we want to start with consumers. And let me pick you, Harish. What do you think is happening to the Indian consumer? How was it yesterday when you started your career? How is it today? And where do you think they're going tomorrow?
So very different, Nagesh. I'll start in English rather than Kannada, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
But very different. You know, I started my career as a marketer way back in 1987. And if I look at the progress since then, I think there have been so many changes. For one, when we started, consumers were not barraged with so many brands and so many. Where was organized retail in India in 1987? You know, you started Shopper Stop.
1991.
1991. That still looks like long past history.
Yeah.
Today, organized retail is everywhere. Malls are everywhere around us. So the first and biggest change, Nagesh, is I think there is a plethora of brands which are competing for the consumer's attention. And only the brands which come up with new products, meet specific consumer needs, are going to win in this equation. I also think there's been a lot of change, specifically with respect to women consumers. There are many, many more working women today who have financial independence, and I'm seeing that in brand after brand. You know, whether it's Titan Raga watches from Titan, or whether it is West Side garments, you see women consumers and their shopping habits have transformed completely over the last 2 or 3 decades. Then, of course, it's fashionable to talk about Gen Z and what Gen Z wants. What younger consumer wants, but it's always been the same. Younger consumers in the 1990s, 2000s, different from the younger consumers today. But I remember when we launched Fast Track stores and Fast Track, there were younger consumers, teenage consumers buying at that time. They may not have been Gen Alpha or Gen Z. Today, some of those tastes have changed once again. And I think, Nagesh, the biggest change, we were discussing it a little earlier, is that the aspiration levels in India have gone very high, not just in Bombay and Bangalore and Delhi, but across all the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 locations. Whether it is digital shopping, whether it's brick and mortar shopping, the aspiration levels in small town India today are the same as the aspiration levels in metro India.
Absolutely.
I think those are 2, 3 things I'd like to start the conversation.
Fabulous. Before I go to Shiv, since you talked about consumers and especially women, I want to narrate something that really came up to my mind. 93, 94, we opened up the women's section in Shopper Stop, yeah?
Okay.
With the beauty. And we had to literally beg women to please stretch their hand so that we could apply nail polish and test it on them, just to color, literally beg, okay? 15 years later on, we had a marathon beauty makeover session in Select City. We had 3 generations of women sitting together, not wanting to leave the seat. It was just not fingers, lips, face, everything, everything, everything. And today you go to any shop, wherever we are talking about tattoo, I mean, easily you lift your hand and say, tattoo in a public place. So I think that's the change that has happened in the last so many years. Shiv, you have been traveling, you're involved with industries, consumers, as well as students. What changes are you seeing in the consumers?
So, hi, can you hear me out there? Yeah. Fantastic. So if I look at it, and I would agree with Harish, I think some drivers have remained the same for India over the last 30 years that I've been in business. Aspiration, quality, price value. I think any which way you combine that order, you'll get an output for a good brand. These 3 have been constant, whether you like it or not. If you don't have aspiration, you become a lower level brand, full stop. So no brand can afford not to have aspiration in India today. That's one. But if I look at the broader trends that I see, which have a significant impact on India this decade and the next decade, urbanization, I think is very, very significant. Today, if you look at globally, half the population is urban. 4.4 billion people, 4 billion people out of 8 billion people is urban. By 2050, it's going to be 75%. Urbanization brings with it enormous pressure on natural utility resources. And that itself is a huge business for retail and everybody else.
Oh, wow.
Remember that, okay? And the 10-minute delivery is one such example of crowded cities and not willing to take your car out, go and park it in the shopper stop or whichever this thing, go search for it, etc., etc. Second is digitization. In digitization, one of the things I think people don't recognize is the role of the government. Today, we are used to very good digital services from the government. Take DigiYatra as an example. Take your income tax return as an example. Take land records as an example. That rubs off for the consumer to say, why can't all my other experiences also be so seamless and frictionless when I deal with brands and outlets? So that's a carryover. The third one, which is very important, is in the past, income minus expenditure was savings. Today, especially for younger consumers, income minus expenditure plus loans plus investments equal savings. Yeah. And a lot of people are borrowing money to invest in the stock market. Yeah. That's why you see the stock market at that level right now. So it's a very different equation in their mind compared to what it was in the past. So where is the money to spend? This is the new equation. Okay. Experience is very, very big now. I think products, brands on their own, services on their own cannot last without consumer experience and user interface, which is fantastic. That's the other one. One of the things I see just coming through in India right now, I think in the next decade you'll see it, Nagesh, is do-it-yourself. We are seeing a number of new categories where the do-it-yourself syndrome is happening. Okay? In building materials specifically, I see that coming through. The challenge of this for all brands, every legacy brand has historically for the last 30 years had a problem with generation -1. That is accelerating today. All legacy brands in FMCG are losing because they don't talk to the new consumer in the language, in the experience that the new consumer wants. So Gen -1 will always be a challenge for every legacy brand. So those would be my thoughts.
So interesting, when you say Gen -1, we were talking when we were having a cup of coffee of the Indian scenario. We are saying consumers are 20 to 30, managers are 30 to 40, CXOs are 40 to 50, CEOs are 50 to 60, and the board is 60 to 70. So that's the way you are managing it. So how do you really understand the consumer? So since there are a lot of people who probably are founders or people are in CXO level, how does the board or the leadership connect with the end consumers?
So Nagesh, a very, very relevant point. I am reflecting back on my experiences with Titan. And we were in the throes then of creating Fast Track as a youth brand. And Fast Track was primarily targeted at the college-going youth and younger people. So one of the things that I think Titan did very well was the team managing Fast Track was largely very young people who belonged to that target segment and therefore could vibe with that consumer very well. I'm seeing the same, for instance, if you look at the team which is managing Zudio today, young team managing for young consumers. So that's with respect to the operating team. But when it comes to the leadership of the company, you have to connect by observing consumers. You have to connect by being in touch with your stores. That has not changed. You might be the most digitally equipped company that you are, but eventually, are you in the stores watching consumers, interacting with consumers? That first-hand feel, Nagesh, is essential for leadership. It was true when I was in the FMCG industry. It was true when I was in the retail industry. It is true today. Just 3 days back, I was at the Lulu Mall in Bangalore. Beautiful mall, huge, I think about 800,000 square feet of space, large stores. But I actually stood there watching 15, 20 young people shop at the Lulu hypermarket there. And that probably gave me more insights than any market research study that I would sit through. But then market research is also important to understand how young consumers are shopping. It's very important to get exposed to the media that young consumers are looking at. What is happening on digital media today? What is happening on Instagram Reels today? Maybe in some other country, what is happening on TikTok today? If you track the media, if you track what is actually happening on content generation by young people, what are young people watching, that gives you very definite clues for what young people are looking at.
So some stats I want to share. Again, a part of research. 50% of the retail business happens on weekend.
That's true.
And the other 50% during Monday to Friday happens between 5:30 to 8:30. Okay? This is the time when the head office doesn't operate. You have a weekend close, and evening everybody leaves at 6 o'clock or 6:30 or 7. And there's a huge issue in the connect. And Shiv, I know that you travel, you walk the stores, you're continuously looking at the retail environment. How do you change this narrative? Especially for the people who are on the back end, to be connected with the customers and also connected with the front end employees. At the end of the day, retail, 85% is still brick and mortar. So how does a business connect with their customers as well as the front end associates, the people part of the business, which is important?
Yeah, so I agree entirely with what Harish said, so I won't repeat that. One of the challenges for senior managers in any company, and one of the challenges for marketeers specifically, is they're not connected to the language of young people.
Yeah.
That, to my mind, is a huge barrier. If you do not know the language, what it means, you will never connect with them emotionally ever. So I'll give you a simple example. In PepsiCo, when I was chairman, 56% of our company was millennials. So we said we'll constitute a millennial board. We used to call it the youth board. But we did something interesting. The youth board was not nominated by the management team. It was elected by the millennials.
Wow.
So you had people making reels going all over, vote for me, talking to everybody, etc. The only condition we had was nobody in the management team could endorse any candidate. Wow. Okay. And 10 people would be elected. They would form the youth board. Now, what was the role of the youth board? Every single activity of the company they managed after that. So all our celebrations, all our rewards and recognitions, all our policies, we tell them, what do you guys think? And they'll say, okay, this is useful, this is not useful, let's cut this. So we brought the voice of the youth to all the decisions that we're making. That actually made us a better company than before.
Wonderful, and I must share this. I think I was on the board of Marico, and we copied your idea. We call them as young board, and it really works. I will strongly urge the audience here, if you're running a business, you should definitely look at this. How do you create a younger board, where you don't have to work with your state ideas, because we are all getting old, maybe we are getting disconnected. But fabulous,
and
fabulous.
One other thing, interesting. Everybody in the youth board, on their LinkedIn page, that's the first thing they write, believe it or not. So it is full of pride, trust me.
Correct.
And a status. Yeah. So you mentioned the word experience as part of the discussions. Again, when I look at the last 30 years, actually from the time I got into modern retail, 3 words have not changed. One is value, second is convenience, and third is experience. Okay, even today if you talk to people, they talked of saying we have to have a better experience. Do you see the future being driven outside these 3 words? Or do you see it will be within this? And then if somebody has to craft a business plan, how do they integrate which one to pick up for the future, for the young, Gen Z, Gen Alpha? How could they work a strategy around these 3 words?
Yeah. So Nagesh, you're quite right. These 3 words are like mantras for any retailer. They would have been the same when you started Shopper Stop. They would have been the same when Tanishq was started and even today. The only thing I want to say is that typically in some minds there's a confusion between value and price. Value is the overall basket of value that you're delivering to consumers. It may be a garment which is 500 or 600 rupees in a Zudio store, that is value. It may be a watch worth 20,000 rupees in a Titan store, that is also value, if it's chronograph and maybe an automatic watch. Or it may be a product worth lakhs of rupees in some other store, maybe in a luxury car store, in a Jaguar Land Rover store. All these constitute value. So what is value depends on which target segment you're actually looking at. Convenience and experience. Convenience has always been at the top of the Indian consumer's mind. Shiv referred to the 10-minute deliveries. What is that except convenience for the Indian consumer today? And convenience will remain top. But I think the one thing which has been every year going up year after year, Nagesh, is really experience. People are looking for memories and experience today in everything that they do, including their shopping journeys. Which is why our retail stores, whichever retail stores they are, need to provide that experience. Take a brand like Tata Starbucks in India. Okay? Starbucks is all about exceedingly good coffee, but it's also about experience in those stores. It is about the baristas in those stores being coffee masters, being able to tell you about Kenyan coffee or Indian coffee or the blends of coffee they're serving you, being able to engage you with tales of coffee. And that is only possible if, firstly, the baristas are very happy themselves. Second, it is possible if they're well trained and they become coffee masters, then they can provide customers the experience, which is why Starbucks does so well, because the baristas are so well trained. More than 25% of them are coffee masters at any point in time. So how do you provide customers the relevant experience for that store? Becomes a very, very compelling question for,
I just wanted to add,
retailers today.
In this making relevance for the customer in terms of experience, you talked about the baristas.
Yeah.
Just expand on your experience of how important are the front-end associates or people in retail to really deliver this experience. Because people are going digital, so only experience that's happening is the last mile consumer logistics delivery guy who does not represent the brand. And your apartment gate, he says, "Sir, delivery boy aaya hai." He may be delivering a 20,000 item. He comes and says, "Come from Amazon." So your brand is lost as far as the consumer is concerned. So how do you really look at the last mile connect with the consumer and create this experience?
Yes. So you let me therefore, Nagesh, just take forward that story of Starbucks itself, since I started on that. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to ensure that the baristas themselves are very motivated and well trained, and you ensure therefore that there are strict 8-hour days, there are 2-day working weekends, there is parental insurance for them. You ensure firstly that your people are happy, because unless your people are happy, you cannot give customers a very good experience. And then thereafter you have to train them to provide that experience. Until the barista is fully trained and he knows which blend of coffee offers what kind of flavors, what kind of aromas, what kind of taste, how does he create that experience for the customer? So you have to ensure that there is very good training. You have to ensure that they feel very proud of the product that they're providing the customers. So baristas in a Starbucks stores are very proud of the coffee that they provide the customers. When you feel proud about your product, then you're able to convey that to the customer. And then you also need to engage in a little bit of storytelling. You need to get that pride and that product knowledge to come into very good, relevant, authentic storytelling for consumers. It's a combination of all this that provides the experience. Now, this may be very different in a Tanishq store, in a Titan store, in a Chroma store. The experience of each of those will be relevant to their products. In a Chroma store, for instance, the person within the store needs to be able to tell consumers all the product features which are relevant to him, understand the customer's needs, tell him this is the kind of laptop that you need, or this is the kind of mobile telephone that you need. That ability to sense the customer's needs and respond with the relevant and right product is also part of that overall experience for customers.
Wonderful.
Retail stores, good retail stores, focus on providing that experience, and that is why they command a lot of loyalty, Nagesh, from customers. Many online platforms, you will not command that kind of loyalty unless you can provide that experience to customers.
Shiv, you as the chairman of PepsiCo, I know you have been traveling into stores where I had the occasion of seeing you in Hypercity, and you're looked at from the producer side and as well as the retailer and the consumer side. How do you look at this value, convenience, and experience?
Yeah. So if you look at value, I think consumers have an innate sense of, is this good value or bad value? And whether it's quality, price, they'll figure it out, design, etc. Convenience, again, by and large, I think, is fine. People have a good sense of it. Let me stay with experience. Two things I want to mention on experience. One, the supply chain ends at the outlet. The experience starts at the outlet.
Well said.
If you can recognize that as a brand, you will do better. Many companies, especially legacy companies, have abdicated experience to supply chains. Consumers don't buy supply chains. Consumers buy experiences. Okay, number one. So the experience in the outlet is a function of two other things which is happening right now, which all of you need to think very carefully. How do you deliver experience when your workforce is distributed, when your workforce is not on your rolls? That is the biggest challenge for many a brand. Because the promoter in your outlet is not your employee.
Yep.
If you do not train him to the standards required for the brand, that experience will be poor. Remember this. So, distributed workforce, not owned workforce. The second one, which is becoming very important, subtly it's coming up all the time. If you look at consumers, they buy on two modes. No worry choice. Okay? I need a bottle of water, no worry choice, can do it. Or I want a very good water, it's made for me. So what we are seeing in experience is that people want personalization without losing the privacy. That is the borderline. They want you to personalize it for them, but they don't want you to know everything about them. So while you have a lot of data, you have to be subtle enough and smart enough to do it. The only place they're willing to give you a lot more data and which impinges on their privacy is with respect to health. Because health is a matter of life and death. They're absolutely happy to give all the data to the hospital, all the data to the doctor, because they know that what they'll get in return is multiple times the privacy they're giving up. But in everything else, there is a line. So about 30% of consumers globally today are saying, I'm willing to give my data. 70% are saying no. So watch out for this personalization vis-a-vis privacy in the experience.
But tell me, both of you, Harish and Shiv, now we know close to about 15 to 18% of the business in India on product and services happening online. Call it as digital, phygital, offline, online, whatever. We also know that the brands, whether it's fashion brand, others, their online contribution is between 10 to 15%. Now, in an era where the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha is going digital, how do you think that the brands or the companies should really look at this opportunity of going phygital? Because we are opening a store at 11 and closing at 10, but the kids are shopping 24/7. So how do you take the company or the brand through this transition and still create the experience?
Yeah. So Nagesh, a very, very important question. I think there are 3-4 markers of it. First, I think consumers go to brands that they trust. How do you create trust online? You create trust online by ensuring that what the customer sees online is what they get. You make sure that it's easy to do shopping online. You make sure there are no hidden charges online. You make sure that your UI UX experience is very smooth online. All those are markers of trust and convenience online. So that's the first thing that brands need to do. The second thing, Nagesh, is for consumers, they're not necessarily saying I'm shopping online or shopping in the store. They have a need, you have to meet that need. And you have to ensure that the brand's expression is the same. If you go onto the website of, let's say, Chroma, and you go to the store of Chroma, your experience should be similar. The store associate may deliver you expertise within the store. You need content online to deliver that same expertise to you, or similar expertise to you, even though it may not be identical. So how do you ensure that the expression of the brand online and within the store is the same, is I think the second thing, apart from trust. The third thing, Nagesh, is I think there is a lot of dissonance in the minds of people if there is variation in price and product. People need to see a similar product, price, value experience online and within the store. If that gets fragmented, I think brands are going to lose trust very, very quickly. And the fourth, from a brand's point of view, there is no, you don't need to isolate online shopping and shopping within the store. You have to ensure that people have a very smooth experience going from one to the other anytime that they want. The person should be able to come online, go to the store, shop online, return somewhere within the store. Make sure that this is one convenient stream for him. And that's what I think brands need to do. The last mile delivery challenge of online is still a challenge. How do you ensure brand standards are retained in the last mile delivery?
We have not been able to see many,
is a challenge.
Many brands do that.
Is a challenge, and I think brands still have to evolve solutions for that.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen, unfortunately, I have seen the best of footwear brands being delivered by somebody whose footwear is torn. Okay, so what happening is that the last mile experience is actually gone out of hand. It's not in the control of the brand. I mean, these are challenges I don't know how one will handle as you go forward.
Yes, no, many brands are doing their best to meet the challenge. I know I have spoken to my friends. For instance, I have spoken to Hari in Big Basket, and I know how careful he is about the last mile experience being maintained by the Big Basket delivery person. But I think that requires a lot of focus because it is distributed experience in 1 million homes which is going to get delivered. And it's a challenge that brands will need to continue dealing with.
Somebody like Hari in Big Basket, there the last mile is controlled by them.
That's right.
But most of the brands, the last mile is given to a third-party provider. And the third-party provider, like he was talking about promoters, has no relation and no relativity to the brand at all. I mean, I am working for somebody else. I care a damn. I'm just delivering a parcel, a carton or a parcel or whatever you call. So this is something that one has to really see how to really take it forward. Shiv, I want to talk to you about the whole capital infusion that's happening in the country, from private equity players, venture capitalists. And if you look at all the Indian players, okay, if they are listed, for them burning means the markets will crash. If they are not listed, they don't know where to get the money. And what's happening in India, I'm seeing, is that the revenues are in Indian rupees. The costs are equivalent to a euro or a dollar. I mean, if you look at the real estate, there are some of you who are from the mall. I can't imagine a mall at 1,000 rupees or 1,200 rupees per square foot. Okay, this is 10,000 rupees a square meter as rentals, which could be anywhere in London or anywhere in New York. So this cost and revenue, where will this converge in a market like India?
Yeah, great question. And this is something we grapple with in our analysis and
you could just
modeling.
also think about the 10 rupee Campa Cola from your Pepsi days as to how that works.
So the first thing I would say is that I think if you look at the structure of the Indian market, you take, India has the maximum number of listed companies, 5,200. We did an analysis of about 4,400 of them where data was available. 66% of companies, which is 3,300 companies, listed companies, have a turnover of less than 500 crores. Less than 500 crores. 80% of companies, 4,000 companies, have a profit of less than 200 crores. So, fundamentally, the profit model of the Indian ecosystem is broken. Full stop. You can say what you want. I'm sure it applies to 90% of the people in this room also. You might not want to see it as starkly as I'm pointing it out. The two models that you talked about. One is what I call the model where all your costs are in dollars, your revenue is in rupees. That's the airlines model. That's why, as the joke goes, how do you make $1 million in the airline industry? You start with $1 billion. Okay, you work your way down. Okay. The second is the IT services model, where your revenue is in dollars, your cost is in rupees.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to seriously think about de-risking your forex element of cost.
Yeah.
If you do not do that, you are in serious trouble. That's all.
I'm just remembering I met somebody day before yesterday who wants to enter India, and he started off by saying this, we want to enter India because 1.4 billion population. Mr. Nagesh, 10% of them spending $100 a year, it will be $1 billion. I mean, that's the...
On this, India Today was the first which ran a cover story in 1991 or 1992 saying the coming middle class. We've all been waiting for it.
Yeah,
Okay. Rough numbers, maybe there's 400 million today, whatever it is, but we are all waiting for the Indian middle class to spend more.
But Shiv, look at this. When you're talking of a $3 trillion going to $4 trillion economy, and you're talking of 4,000 companies having less than $100 million turnover. 500 crores, 700 crores, 800 crores, less than $100 million. And I keep talking about the fashion industry that we are all part of. I mean, we don't see even one $500 million brand, not one. As a brand, I'm saying, from turnover after 25, 30 years. So where is this consumption? Where is this Indian? Where is the Indian middle class, like you said, 300 million Indians? All of us are chasing the only 300 million Indians. The 1.1 billion is kept aside. So where is the opportunity? For anybody who wants to start a business, where is the opportunity? And especially they want to scale profitably. Okay, where is the opportunity?
I think the opportunity is there in any number of sectors. For example, let's take FMCG. Market worth maybe 90, 100,000 crores. Why aren't the big FMCG companies growing? Because they've forgotten the niches, they've forgotten the new segments. Who is taking them? The D2C brands. So if you don't innovate, you have no chance of going after the new consumer or the new segment. So one of the mistakes, especially since you mentioned apparel, I don't know how many apparel people are here. You might not like what I say. 99% of your strategy is buy two, get one free. Apparel industry. Now, why the hell will you succeed? You will not succeed. You deserve to fail. I'm sorry to tell you this. Okay. Nobody's innovating. Look at the brands which are innovating. I think the speaker before us, BlackBerry, I have a lot of regard for them. I know the Mohan brothers very well. What they have done to trousers and what is good in trousers is fantastic. The other brand in apparel, I have a lot of regard for. Hats off. I've been watching them for 5 years. Rare Rabbit. 5 years ago, I said they'll be a good brand. Everywhere I go. I'm not related to any of these brands, but I observe them in the marketplace. Now, what a Rare Rabbit is doing, what a BlackBerry is doing, why can't the other brands do it? So if you want to be blind to innovation, then you'll be open to price cuts. It's as simple as that. The only way to get away from the price war in any industry is to innovate. You have to ask yourself, what are the pain points? Going back to your question to Harish. How do you get people into a physical outlet? Banks, nobody goes to a bank today. As more technology comes in, the value moves closer to the consumer. The value is in the app which gives the credit rating in the outlet. I don't need to go to a bank. Let's take theaters. How do you get people into a theater? Events, birthdays, parties, occasions. So the pain points of any outlet today are paperwork, queue, crowds, confusion on inventory. If you can solve this sensibly, you will be a brand which will be successful. You know, this is not rocket science. You don't need an MBA for it.
Absolutely. By the way, all
Nagesh,
the three of our MBAs, so that's what he's mentioning. Yeah.
So I want to add to that, Nagesh. And, you know, a lot of my experience has been with the Tata Group and Tata brands. But let me just take 3 brands I've been associated with for a long period of time. I was associated with Tanishq, with Titan, and now I sit on the board of Trent as well. And I can see some of our partners here. Raj from ETP is here, who has been working with us for a long time and created excellent systems for us. But in all these 3, what I have found, Nagesh, is the first is the core product has to deliver to a customer need. You have to innovate on the core product. Whether it was Tanishq with lightweight jewelry, whether it was Titan with Raga watches and fast track watches, or it is Trent now with Zudio garments for the store. So how do you innovate with your core product and deliver to customer needs is, I think, first and forefront. The second is, Nagesh, your stores have to talk the language of the brand. The experience within the store has to live up. You know, Shiv spoke about, you know, what did you say, buy two, get one free.
But that was only for apparel, huh?
Yeah, apparel.
He wants you to do this for Tanishq.
But
he's looking forward. His wife will be very happy.
But you know, I can assure you that these brands like Tanishq and Titan and Westside and Zudio have grown on the back of very solid branding and not based on, you know, the on this kind of buy two, get one free. There is an idea for the brand, whatever that idea be. In the case of Tanishq, it may be new tales of tradition. In the case of Titan Raga, it may be feminine sensuality and so forth. But they've grown on the back of that idea, and they've grown very steadily and surely in providing good value to the customer. I think discounting is the best way of destroying your brand. It was my view when I was in Tanishq 20 years back. It is my view even today. And brands which engage in reckless discounting, you will get some temporary relief from it, but it's not going to help your brand.
Tell me, this is the kind of reality, this is the kind of opportunity. Do we have talent in this country to take to the next level? or do you think there is a serious issue in terms of talent? Because a lot of places people tell me it is easy and cheaper to hire international expats to come into India than the local at the senior level. The salaries have gone up the mark, okay, and not many people have been able to scale. If you look at companies which have scaled like a trend, okay, how many companies can you quote? If you go to your stock exchange listed companies, I don't know how many companies have seen a 25% CAGR for the last 5-10 years.
Very, very good question. If you look at the structure of the Indian market, GDP, 63% of it is consumption. It will only grow in the coming decade. India will be one of the largest consumption markets apart from America.
Yep.
Now, here's a fundamental shift, and you pointed this out right in the beginning. In the last 20 years, I would say till maybe about 10 years ago, if I take 20 years before that, before 2015, the dominant thinking model of all marketeers and companies was penetration-led. And penetration-led was pricing, penetration-led was sachet pricing, sachets, small packs, etc. When you want consumption to grow, you need variety. You need people to buy more. So the lady has bought one bag, how do you sell 3 bags? The guy has one tie, how do you sell 3 ties? Consumption is a very different game, which is about wants and desires. It's not about fulfilling needs. On that, I would say we are on the journey. I don't think more than 50% of our marketeers today understand consumption. That's my honest submission to you.
No, that's quite right, Shiv. I completely agree with you.
So tell me one thing, you're talking about desires and aspirations and need. Big question, do we need in our country a 7 minutes delivery? Do we need a 10 minutes delivery in this country? I mean, I don't know, suddenly it has come from somewhere and billions of dollars are being invested in this country. And of course, we'll talk about the Kirana ecosystem. Kirana ecosystem was delivering in less than 10 minutes. Okay, Kirana ecosystem, you deliver, say, Harish ji, aapke liye ye leke aaya hu. Kirana ecosystem will also see if you pay after 30 days is fine. Now, in that ecosystem where most of our needs were actually met in a different way, this whole 7 minutes, 10 minutes delivery, and people are talking, and this delivery is not new. I mean, Domino's were delivering pizza in 30 minutes. And that time, if you had spoken to Ajay Kaul, he said, we know we'll miss 5 to 10%, and therefore we had said, if you deliver after 30 minutes, we'll give you a pizza free. From that to create a 7 to 10 minutes, I mean, this is something I just can't understand.
Yeah,
now.
so Nagesh, I want to say there are about 100 people here now. I just want, from the audience, how many of you use a 10-minute delivery platform? So you can see the answer is here in front of us. I think eventually consumers get what they want. Convenience. And I can see 90% of the room actually raised their hands. But to tell you the truth, Nagesh, the greatest respect I have in India is for the Kirana store owner. I was a young marketing manager in Tata Tea when I was competing with Shiv. He was in Unilever at that time. Both of us were trying to sell to the Indian. The Indian Kirana store owner is a very ingenious person, very hardworking person who has fulfilled the needs of millions of Indian consumers over the years. I know they are under pressure today, but I'm sure they will adapt to the situation and find how best to navigate the situation.
I also believe so.
This is my very strong belief.
I also believe so. I know this session is getting recorded. I don't know how many of you saw the morning LinkedIn post. I think Shiv somebody posted that saying that guys come to PRC because you're likely to see either 3 idiots talking to each other or you're actually going to find 3 musketeers. Somebody cleverly changed to say, 3 marketeers, and then maybe 3 wise men, okay? So I would like to say that we are one of them. I don't know which one, but we'll finally take a vote of that. I mean, both of you, we have all grown. When we started 30 years back or 35 years back, how many years of work experience now? 35. Okay, so 42. Am I the oldest? No. Okay, between 35 to 40 years, okay? If somebody has to start a career and want to grow as fast as all of us have grown in a shorter period of 10, 15, 20 years, and maybe in the retail business or consumer business, what are the 3 things that you will tell them?
So first thing I would say, Nagesh, is understand the consumer. Shiv said many marketers in India still don't understand the consumer. Know your consumer very well. You can't market to a tier 1 or tier 2 consumer in India by sitting in your boardrooms in Mumbai. You have to be willing to travel out, know your consumer out, interact with you. And by consumers, I don't mean only the end consumer. I mean the trade, the distributor, the franchisees, whomever you're dealing with. I think know that very, very well. The second thing I would say is keep upskilling and keep reskilling yourself. The world is going through a huge transformation. Consumers are changing. The world of digital and AI is changing. The world of retail is changing. How do you constantly reskill yourself? Otherwise, 5 years out from your MBA course, you're going to be outdated already. That's the second thing I would say. The third thing, Nagesh, is keep a very, very open mind. Keep a very, very open mind and understand that India is a complex market. India has many, many regions to it which don't react similarly all the time. You are actually dealing with different cultures across the country, and your ability to navigate through that diversity of consumers is, I think, very critical to succeed in India. These are the three things that I would say.
Shiv?
I agree with what Harish has said, but I'll pivot to the skills required to be successful in any industry. Okay? If you look at the future skills, the World Economic Forum says 3 skills are important in an AI world. They say up to 2030, next 5 years, and I add 2 to it. The 3 skills they say are important are complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. To that, I add collaboration and communication. If you cannot collaborate, you cannot communicate, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
So I believe if you want to be a leader of significance in the next 5 years, get ready on these 5 issues.
Wow. And does stability or loyalty also work? How many years in Tata Group?
38 now.
34th year with Shopper Stop.
Yeah.
You have had long stints almost in all the places that you have been. Does it really make a difference?
So here's the thing. To a young person, somebody who's 25 to 30, he doesn't think loyalty at all. To him, loyalty is 1 year, 2 years. Okay. I keep joking in the companies where I'm on the board and associated with saying, we must give a long-term award for people who've done 2 years now. Today, and this is not just India, 82% of Indians want to change their job in the next 12 months. If you think India is an outlier, 60% globally want to change their job in the next 12 months. So that's the generation you're dealing with. So when they come to work, Nagesh, what they're saying is, Nagesh has spent 37 years. I'm going to spend 6 months under him. How do I juice out those 37 years so that I become another Nagesh in 6 months? Full stop. If leaders do not have the ability to teach and grow people below them, you will not have that workforce. Today's workforce is volunteers. They're volunteered 2 years of their time, 1 year of their time. If you do a good job, they'll volunteer a 3rd year, if you're lucky. So loyalty is dead both for brands and employees.
Wonderful. Before I go on to open up the house for question answers, how many of you want to change your job in the next 12 months?
Ask if their boss is
He's saying, are your bosses around here? Yeah, it's very, very different. No, it's always nice to get a very clear poll and have
So
a
Nagesh, there was one question about 10 minutes and one about 12 months now.
Yes, yes, yeah. 10 minutes delivery, 12 months, okay? And we'll vote, okay? How many of you think that these were 3 idiots talking? Raise your right hand. Not one, huh? Not bad, not bad. How many of you think that there were 3 marketeers speaking? Good. Anybody thinks we have 3 musketeers speaking? 3 of them. How many of you think that wise men speaking? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll open the house for a Q&A. If you have a question, please do ask your question, tell your name and which company you belong to. And if your question is directed to any one of us, take the name. Otherwise, one of us will pick it up. Yeah.
May I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
So, I mean, we spoke about channel conflict, and that's always an issue with grocery and FMCG companies today. Are there any use cases there? Because we struggle that how to motivate GT to grow or to repurpose themselves. Talking about the Kirana outlet. So obviously, this is the hot topic in every boardroom in an FMCG company. So I was curious if there are any use cases you guys have come through on how companies have helped the Kirana outlet to repurpose, rethink their model. Thank you.
So I'm part of an organization called TRRAIN, where for 3 years I ran a small vertical called Kirana Friends. If you go on our site, you'll find a report done by Kirana Friends and Accenture, where we have talked about what can happen and how can Kiranas grow. I'll give you quickly the results of our study. Firstly, if Kiranas modernize themselves, okay, at a rate of 1,000 rupees per square foot, Kirana's sales and profitability doubles in 3 years. Okay, this is documented. We have put this in the report, and we have done a survey all across the country. And this was done along with Walmart and Metro, so it's there. What are the impediments? First is the mindset. Okay, they are saying we have run it for 50 years. I went to a Kirana and said, this is what we have in town. He says, कितना साल किराना चलाया? I said, नहीं मैं किराना नहीं चलाया. He said, मैं 50 साल से चला रहा हूँ. आपको क्या आता किराना के बारे में? Finished. The second issue is the second generation does not want to come into Kiranas. Most Kirana owners in this country are in their 50s and 60s. Most of them are not educated. The children are mostly graduates. They don't want to come into this environment. Yeah? So that's the second mindset. The third what's happened is organized distribution channels, and they are the experts. Organized distribution channels have actually ensured that if at all there's a margin left, it's squeezed out. You know, earlier distributor had some margin. Now distributors became e-commerce. Now it's come, Zeptos of the world have come, Blinkits of the world have come. They have become distributors. So there is no margin left for retailers. You'll be surprised an average Kirana in our study takes home about 50,000 bucks. An average Kirana size in this country is less than 200 square feet, 20 square meters. I mean, that's what Kiranas are. So, but the opportunity is so large, so large. I mean, even with all this happening, Kiranas are 85, 87% or 88% of the market. So I'm sure somebody like Harish was saying will crack the code of doing and using Kiranas as the so-called dark stores and building transactions through relationship. And I think that's the big opportunity, yeah? You want to add anything?
No, I think that's an excellent answer, Nagesh.
Yes, please. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful talk. It was really, really enlightening. I'm Amit Garg. We are running a venture which is basically trying to give an online presence to all the local markets and all to the local stores. So on that, I just wanted to touch base on one of the things which you said about urbanization and tier 2 and tier 3 markets coming to the forefront of the Indian economy. So I just want to hear from you, what are your views on big brands stepping into tier 2s and tier 3s? And how do they want to create an experience for tier 2 and tier 3 consumers, which to an extent are also very price conscious consumers as compared to the big metros? So just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
So Nagesh, I want to say thank you for that question. Your name, please?
Amit Garg.
Amit. So thank you, Amit, for that question. See, my experience has been, if you look at retail chains of the Tata Group, I'm now talking of Titan or Tanishq or Zudio or Westside or Chroma. The experience in a tier 2 town that we provide is exactly the same as the experience in a metro. Or we don't differentiate store formats. Maybe the store format of a flagship store in a large city will be much larger. But otherwise, if you take a regular store format in Pune versus a regular store format in Saranpur, it's not going to be very different from each other. What we, however, do is that the merchandise within the store is crafted and the assortment that we plan is done keeping in mind the needs of the consumer of that particular region more than that particular town category. So the assortment in Punjab may be very different from the assortment in West Bengal, very different from the assortment in Tamil Nadu. So that's one thing that we do. The second thing that we do is we are very, very conscious that in smaller towns particularly, customers should not see these large stores as being very alienating.
Yeah.
And therefore, the stores have to be very accessible and welcoming and inclusive. Because customers are still getting used to modern retail. So there are many ways of making the stores inclusive, many ways of making them accessible. You provide glass formats, you make sure that store associates know the local language very well. You make sure that the stores stock the language of the consumer. I think that is very critical. Otherwise consumers may not step into such stores. The third thing that you need to do, particularly in small town India, I think customers are led by trust in brands. You have to make sure that your brand is trusted. You provide products, deliveries, etc., which are completely up to the mark. And I believe that trust works even more in smaller town India than it does in larger towns.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Two categories I find very challenging in small town India right now to build, even normal retail or exclusive retail. One is lingerie, one is sexual wellness products.
Yeah.
These are what I call the unmentionables. The need is there, the market is there. I think if a retailer can find a smart way to do this, there's a gold mine. These two categories, I think, are set to grow, but Marketeers haven't found the answer.
I, I must share something. When we started our women's section in 1994 in Shoppers Stop, and we wanted to get lingerie into our stores, so I said, let's go to the store, which is the best-selling store, okay? You'll be surprised, the best-selling store was in a Bandra market, okay, a small 500 square feet, only men, and no trial room. And today you have modern retail, which is open with 3 trial rooms, and you still struggle to sell lingerie. I mean, this is mindset, and this is probably trust. Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a one smaller follow-up, if I can ask. No worries.
He's the boss. Anish is the boss.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tanuja Pradhan from ClarityX. It's a MapMy India company on consulting and analytics. You spoke about women, and I do not see any women here. So, what do you think? What brand should do to increase women participation in this retail sector? That is, every time I go to a retail conference, I do not see women. So, I thought that's the best question to ask you guys. Thank you.
You want to pick up? I lost track.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you for that question, Tanuja. I can see some women here, but I agree with you that the proportion is not very high. I think if retailers have to, within the retail stores of the Tata Group, there definitely has been a focus on getting more women to come and work in retail. I think Nagesh will probably be in an even better position to answer because he runs TRRAIN for retail associates. But 2 or 3 things let me say up front. One is you have to create safe working conditions for women, and you have to create working conditions which are amenable to women participating as retail associates within the store. The second thing that you have to do is recognize that women employees have somewhat different needs from men employees, and how can your workforce policies ensure that those different needs are enabled by the retail stores themselves. I do believe that sometimes just setting targets works very well. Saying that we have to reach a 40% gender ratio or a 45% gender ratio, because then you're looking at multiple ways of getting to that target. And it is important for us to encourage female participation in the workforce, because every woman who is employed and becomes financially independent, it means so much for her, for the education of her children, for the entire family. And I think as corporates and as retailers, we have a very important responsibility to fulfill by doing that. But Nagesh, you have spoken on this topic. I remember coming for your TRRAIN sessions.
Shiv, if you have anything, then maybe I will.
Yeah, I'll just add, I'm reading a wonderful book by 3 McKinsey women directors on, it's called The Broken Rung. I'm going to summarize it tonight. It will be on LinkedIn tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. They make 2-3 important points. The women employment in India is just 30%. It's only below 50% in 3 countries, India, Mexico, and Italy. Everywhere else it's above 50%. Okay, that's interesting. Second, their hypothesis, I tend to agree with it. I have 60 pages to go. Their hypothesis is that women drop off because of what they call the broken rung. Every rung of the ladder is broken for women compared to men. So the first rung which gets broken sets the woman back financially as well as time-wise by 2-3 years. And they actually have data for that. So if you are a company which wants to promote women, you have to seriously think about giving them equal opportunity at every rung of the ladder.
Interesting. Harish mentioned about the trust that I run called TRRAIN, and where we have a wing called Train Her, where we actually skill women from marginalized communities and get them jobs in retail. Yeah. As of now, I think Indian retail has about 22% women working. If I tell you as to why women are not working on the bottom of the retail, you'll be shocked. But I have to express this as research. The reason women are not working other than malls is, in this country, you don't have safe, clean, hygienic toilets for women on any street. Whether commercial street, Brigade Road, anywhere you talk of. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's number 1. Number 2 is we operate very, very long hours without break shift. I'm not talking of modern retail, but most of them even squeeze this off. You know, you do a 10, 11-hour shift that you have that. And the second is, we have never taught the parents and the men in the business how to include women. Okay, which I think is very, 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 very important.
Very, very, very important points, Nagesh. Very important
points. Across the ladder. Okay, and that's true. I mean, today we are teaching men about posh. But we are never telling them that if you include a women in the leadership, what change it will bring. And therefore you find, and look at what's happened to the boards. From the time there's a compulsion that you have to have at least one women director, at least they're coming, then you have institutions which are training directors to get onto the board. There's some beginning. So I like what Harish said. You have to have a target. I'm going to take it from 22 to 35% in the next 3 years. I love IKEA because when they came into India, they approached us and said, we are an equal company. We want 50% women in our business on day one. So we skilled 250 girls, and they took 125, we put them into the market. And they said, we want girls who can operate lift. So every role, a lift operator, they need to have a guy and a girl to operate. I mean, that's a policy. So somewhere we have to make that beginning.
I must tell you, a positive and a challenging joke. When I was chairman of PepsiCo, we didn't have enough women in the organization, or we could have had more women. So I called the HR recruiting manager, Pavitra Singh, who's the current CHRO, and I said, all vacancies, 70% must be filled with women. So Shiv, not possible, blah, 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 etc. Finally, she worked very hard. 77% of all roles were filled with women.
Wow.
So I proudly stood up in the town hall, said, look, this year we've done this. After that, there are a lot of people who knocked on my door. Okay, when I opened the door, men. Shiv, is there a future for men in this organization? So whatever you do with women, my learning is you have to ensure that it's meritocratic.
Yes. Yeah.
It is not a quota. The moment you make it a quota, the men in the room will tell you, hey Shiv, you're not living up to the professional values of being a good CEO.
Yeah.
Please remember this. I've gone through it, so trust my gray hair.
No, I can add it to this. We run a program for women. Last week I met a partner who came and said, you're not inclusive. Yeah. Our purpose statement says we will create an equitable and inclusive community. I said, why? We are doing PWDs, we are doing women. He said, you have excluded men. Absolutely. So inclusivity means all
so
that.
It has to be a meritocracy at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But even with the meritocracy in place, it's good to have a specific target that you move towards.
Agreed. We have, I think, 1.5 minutes to go, maybe 2 questions. Yeah, last one. Please go ahead.
Hi. First of all, amazing session. I would say session by 3 wise men who are extremely young at heart. So great session. My question is on the whole discounting part, right? Across the industry, you know that everyone believes that discounting is not happening, and you guys spoke about it. However, everyone indulges in it. And today, when you go out in the market and somebody says, my full price sell-through is about 40%, it's like he's done a great job, right? So what is the 1 or 2 steps that retailers can take consistently across the board so that they reduce the amount of discounting? Like Shiv, I was reading the other day that Colgate is having issues with distributors where they are discounting online, etc. What is those 1 or 2 steps that they can take so that discounting starts to reduce?
It's a challenging issue that you're raising, but I would say 2 things. One, if you're able to control your inventories well within the store, and ensure that you track fashion trends very carefully and ensure that you're in line, I believe that you are setting the stage for lower discounting in the future. Second, you have to create consumer pull for your brand. At the end of the day, I started my career not in retail, I started it in the FMCG industry, where commodities like tea and soap and oil are branded and sold. People come and buy them because of consumer pull. And you have to create consumer pull for your brand. Now, that's an entire session on marketing and brand building. But unless you create consumer pull for your brand, if you continue to be a commodity, you will only end up discounting the product. So how do you create consumer pull for your brand? It requires some degree of brand investment. It requires a very clear idea of what does your brand stand for, what differentiates your brand from others in the market. If you're not able to come out with very clear nodes of differentiation, then you're moving more and more into commodity space. So I would say very good supply chain management and building a good brand.
I just want to add on top of it. In my experience, the biggest failure has been being able to do forecasting. All our businesses, if you look at it, we miss the forecast by 5 to 10%. If you miss the forecast by 5 to 10%, your inventory goes double. It's as simple as that. So all that what he has said and whatever I thought I will add it up to it. But thank you very much for being a great audience.